Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something pretty interesting happening out in California.
Yeah.
We're always hearing about the wildfires out there and how dry it is.
Yeah.
Well, get this. Rain is in the forecast, which you'd think is great news, right?
Yeah, you'd think that, right?
But it's actually way more complicated than that, especially in areas where wildfires have just ripped through.
Right.
So in this deep dive, we're going to, unpack this whole rain situation, the good, the bad, the stuff you might not expect.
Definitely.
To help us break it all down, we've got an expert here who really knows their stuff.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with the obvious. I mean, California's been parched for so long.
Absolutely.
How does this rain, impact those wildfires they're still battling?
So the rain is, well, I mean, it's like a firefighter's best friend in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
I mean, first off, you get that moisture.
Yeah.
So it soaks into all the dry brush and trees, makes them a lot harder to burn.
Oh, okay. So it's like less fuel for the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's also this other thing. All the smoldering embers, they're like hidden underground.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about those.
Yeah, and they can easily spark up new fires if things stay dry. But with rain, well, that risk goes way down.
Oh, that makes sense. Like, it's hard to start a campfire when everything's damp, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so that'll make sense. Rain helps put out the fires, prevents new ones. But you mentioned there's a downside here, right?
Yeah.
Something about burn scars, you said.
Right. Burn scars.
What exactly are those?
So basically, they're the areas left behind after a wildfire burns out. And, well, they're really vulnerable.
Oh, okay.
You see, when a fire that intense comes through, it doesn't just destroy the plants and trees.
Yeah.
It actually, bakes the soil.
Oh, wow.
Changes the whole structure, makes it almost like water repellent.
Huh. So the ground's kind of like, I don't know, like a hard crust.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay, and so what happens when it rains on that?
Well, that's where the trouble starts. So you've got this water, right?
Right.
And it hits this hard ground and it can't soak in.
Okay.
So what does it do? It runs off, picks up speed, picks up loose soil, rocks, debris, whatever's in its path.
Yeah.
And then you get flash floods. And if you're talking about hilly areas, which a lot of California is, well, that runoff can turn into a mudslide. I mean, we're talking like a wall of mud and debris just barreling downhill.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah, it can be really dangerous.
So, I mean, is there any way to, like, predict these mudslides or prevent them?
Well, thankfully, we've got technology on our side, right?
Okay.
So officials are using sophisticated weather models, radar to keep track of where the rain's falling, how much, how fast.
Gotcha.
That helps them predict where flooding might happen, especially in those burn scar areas. And they're not just watching screens. They've also got people on the ground, monitoring those burn scars, setting up flood barriers to try and divert the water.
And are they, like, using those emergency alert systems too?
Yeah, big time. Sirens, text alerts, all those things.
Right.
They're trying to give people as much warning as possible, so they can get out of harm's way if they need to.
Yeah, because it sounds like things can change pretty quickly in those situations.
Oh, absolutely. And, our sources specifically mentioned they're worried about Northern and Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those areas got hit hard by fires recently.
They did. So, yeah, anyone listening in those areas, please, pay attention to those alerts. Be ready to go if you need to.
Seriously, it's no joke.
It's interesting, though, this whole rain thing, it kind of feels like a bigger picture of what California's dealing with, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's like one extreme to the other. Drought, then intense rain.
Right.
That can't be good for the environment.
No, it's definitely a pattern we're seeing more and more. And it's all tied to climate change.
Okay.
So you've got these longer, hotter, dry spells, right?
Yeah.
Which, that just dries everything out, makes it super easy for wildfires to start and spread.
Yeah.
And then when the rain finally does come, it's often in these huge bursts, like atmospheric rivers, they call them.
I've heard that term.
Yeah, it's like the sky just opens up and dumps a ton of water all at once.
Wow.
And that's just a recipe for flooding and mudslides, especially with those burn scars we talked about.
Right. So it's like no matter what happens, California loses,
It's tough. It's like they're stuck in this cycle of extremes.
Yeah. Is there anything that can be done to, break this cycle?
Well, it's going to take a lot of work,
Yeah.
We need to start thinking long term, thinking about solutions that can help us adapt to this changing climate.
Like what?
Well, I mean, One thing is smarter land management. So things like, doing more prescribed burns. That helps clear out all the dry brush, makes it harder for big fires to take hold.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. And we could create more fire breaks too. That's like, strips of land where they clear out all the vegetation.
Oh, like a barrier?
Exactly. It helps slow down or stop a fire from spreading.
Okay.
And then, reforestation efforts are huge. We got to plant more trees, but choose species that can handle drought conditions.
Oh, yeah. The right trees for the right place.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So it's not just about, putting out the fires when they happen.
Sure.
It's about, preventing them in the first place.
Exactly. We have to be proactive, not just reactive.
And what about those floods and mudslides? Is there anything, people can do to prepare for those?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, having a plan is key, right?
Yeah.
Create a household emergency plan, talk to your family about what you do in case of a flood or evacuation.
That's always a good idea.
It is. And put together a go bag, Have some essentials packed and ready to go, just in case.
What kind of stuff should go in there?
And, the basics. Water, non-perishable food, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, copies of important documents, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And make sure you know your evacuation routes, too. If you had to leave your home quickly, where would you go? How would you get there?
Right.
It's good to think about that stuff ahead of time before you're in a panic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Having a plan definitely makes you feel more in control when things get crazy.
Right.
So for our listeners out there, where can they go to find more information about preparing for these kinds of disasters?
Well, a great place to start is ready.gov.
Okay.
It's a website run by FEMA, and it's got tons of resources and checklists for all sorts of emergencies.
Awesome. And what about local resources?
Oh, yeah. Definitely check your county and city websites, too.
Mm.
They usually have specific information for your area, evacuation zones, emergency shelters, things like that.
Right.
Local knowledge is key.
So just to kind of sum up what we've talked about today, it seems like this rainfall in California, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It helps firefighters battle the wildfires, but it also brings this risk of floods and mudslides, especially in those burn scar areas.
Exactly. And, it really highlights this bigger issue of climate change and how it's making these extreme weather events more common and more severe.
Yeah, and as we move forward, it's how do we adapt? How do we, build resilience as individuals and as a society?
Right. It's something we all have to think about and figure out together.
That's a great point to end on. And, of course, we'll have all those resources we talked about linked in the show notes for you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Stay safe out there.
Stay informed, stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.